The latest installment of the Wilderness Survival series has just dropped, and it's kicking off with a bang. A massive $500,000 prize is up for grabs, but it won't come easy. This time, the challenge takes place in the Arctic Circle of northern Canada. Home to over 3,000 polar bears, 40,000 massive moose, and countless fish species, this frozen wilderness isn't for the faint of heart. And let's not forget the wolves, numbering in the thousands, fierce and bloodthirsty, they roam the land with deadly intent. Winter here is brutal, with thick snow blanketing the ground for 8 straight months. Temperatures can plummet to a bone-chilling -40°C. To make it worse, there are stretches of 24 hours without a glimpse of the sun. This may very well be the toughest survival challenge ever attempted. Are they ready for it? The first contestant to appear is Isaiah, a 36-year-old park ranger and captain in the National Guard's Air Force unit, responsible for executing rescue missions during major disasters. After multiple failed fertility treatments in hopes of having a child, Isaiah and his wife were left emotionally and financially drained. Their life savings are gone. Winning the $500,000 prize could change everything for his family. After landing in the Arctic wilderness, Isaiah scans his surroundings carefully. His priorities are clear: find a place to set up camp, locate water, and search for food. He enters a dense forest filled with towering spruce trees. As he makes his way deeper into the woods, he spots wolf tracks by a nearby riverbank. That's not a good sign, especially for someone alone, without a fire. An encounter with a hungry pack could quickly turn deadly. But the danger doesn't stop there. Not long after, Isaiah discovers massive grizzly bear tracks on the ground. Even more alarming, there are signs of a cub nearby, a clear warning that a protective mother could be close. This place is no safe haven, and Isaiah knows it. William, 49 years old, is the next contestant to enter the survival competition. He's a fisherman with 35 years of experience. After carefully observing the surrounding environment and selecting a location to set up camp, he chose not to immediately build a shelter. Instead, he headed to the lakeshore to catch some fish. One of the 10 items he brought with him was a fishing net. He wasn't sure if that was the best choice, but if he managed to catch fish, he'd be the first contestant to secure food on the show. Besides being a skilled fisherman, William is also an experienced hunter. If he could win this competition, his dream is to move his family to a quiet coastal town with fewer people, where they could live a peaceful life together. Once the fishing net was set, he started looking for a place to build his shelter. Due to the high number of bears in the area, building a secure and sturdy shelter was his top priority. After more than 2 hours of hard work, exhaustion began to set in. He took a short break and decided to check on the fishing net. And just as he'd hoped, within a short time, William had caught a big fish, officially making him the first person this season to catch food. But just as he was pulling the fish onto the shore, he slipped, letting the fish escape back into the water. It was a heartbreaking moment. William couldn't believe his eyes. All that effort, and in an instant, it was gone. In front of you is Cubby, 34 years old, currently working as a housekeeper. Tired of the noisy city life, he and his wife decided to sell all their valuable belongings and move to the wilderness to settle down. If he wins this competition, Cubby plans to use the prize money to treat his wife's illness and improve his family's quality of life. After landing, the first thing Cubby did was start building a shelter. After all, no one wants to sleep out in the open when living in bear territory. Unexpectedly, he spotted a small squirrel and immediately decided to hunt it. But the squirrel escaped, and in the process, he damaged one of his precious arrows. Cubby deeply regretted the hasty decision, blaming himself for being too impatient. He returned to focusing on building the shelter. First, he gathered some dry wood, lit a fire, and boiled a pot of water. Then, in the open space he found, he used rope and a thermal tarp to construct a temporary shelter. Eventually, he plans to find a better location and build a more permanent home. Dub, 44 years old, is a true wild hunter. He interacts with nature almost every day. Hunting, trapping, and fishing are all second nature to him. For Dub, joining this competition is simply about changing locations. He chooses to live a solitary life focused solely on survival, with no thoughts of settling down or having a family. If he wins the competition, he plans to use the prize money to pay off his mother's mortgage. Right after landing, he spotted a caribou near his campsite. Unfortunately, caribou are a protected species, so he couldn't do anything about it. He then began digging into the ground to create insulation for the winter and built his shelter directly over the dugout space. Next, he gathered wood and started building. The shelter didn't need to be large, but it had to be strong enough to withstand grizzly bears and warm enough to survive the harsh winter. Once the structure was ready, he moved all of his supplies inside. But while he was sleeping soundly, a brown bear appeared right at his doorstep. Luckily, it eventually wandered off, but that entire night, Dub didn't dare close his eyes for even a second. As soon as the sun rose, he quickly relocated his shelter to a different spot to avoid another potential encounter with the bear. Michaela, 34 years old, spent her first day setting up a simple but secure shelter. Her location seemed relatively safe. There were no signs of bears in the area. As an adventure guide by profession, building traps, hunting, and fishing are just part of her daily routine. Even hunting wolves wouldn't be a problem for her. She joined the show to prove her abilities, and of course, winning the $500,000 prize would also mean a better life. After crafting 2 decoy ducks and placing them on the lake, she dropped her fishing net into the water to try catching fish. The purpose of the decoy ducks was to lure real ducks in close enough to potentially hunt them later. On her way back to camp, she came across wolf tracks along the riverbank. That was not a good sign. If a pack of wolves were to attack and she had no weapons on her, she could easily end up being their next meal. On the second day, Cubby found a few blueberries on the ground. Although there weren't many, they could still give him a small energy boost. After that, he began working on building a more permanent shelter. Since the area is home to many predators and large animals, creating a solid and secure shelter was his top priority. He used thick tree trunks as support pillars, constructed a roof overhead, and built a large bed underneath. That was enough for today. Time to rest. Only one day had passed, but Forest Ranger Isaiah was already feeling overwhelmed. He deeply missed his wife and child. The excitement he once had before joining the competition had completely faded. He hadn't expected to feel this way, but he knew he couldn't give up. Not when he had promised his daughter to stay strong and prove himself. Determined, he decided to go out and search for food. However, as soon as he ate a single blueberry, his nose started bleeding. This made Isaiah a bit frustrated. There might have been something wrong with the berry. Not wanting to waste another minute, he quickly changed tactics. He headed to the river to fish, a much safer and less energy-draining option than hunting in the forest. He tied a hook to his fishing line and set up a trap in the water, hoping to catch something soon. Meanwhile, Michaela was heading to the river to check her fishing net. But to her surprise, she found bear tracks right by the water's edge. Wolves in front, bears behind. This place was turning out to be incredibly dangerous. To make things worse, the current in the river was quite strong, and the net had gotten tangled. She hadn't caught a single fish. Still, Michaela didn't show a trace of anger or frustration. Calm and composed, she carefully untangled the net and reset it back into the water. On her way back, she came across a large stone. In her culture, such stones are considered sacred. Respecting her beliefs, she took the time to clear the grass around it and offered a sincere prayer. William woke up after a good night's sleep and got ready to find some breakfast. Wild roses were edible, but he knew not to eat too many. They could irritate the skin. After eating a few berries, he clearly started feeling better. His spirits lifted even more when he spotted rabbit tracks. If he set a few traps around here, he might actually catch one. Without wasting time, William crafted a simple snare and tied it to a sturdy stick. Ever since losing that big fish, he'd been feeling pretty down. His confidence had taken a hit. But if he could catch this rabbit, it might just turn things around. After setting the trap, he headed to a small swampy area to try his luck with fishing again. The shallow water was perfect for catching small fish. Spotting a good stick, he slammed it into the water, and just like that, he caught 2 small fish. Encouraged, he kept at it. By the end of his effort, he had a total of 5 fish, a well-deserved reward for all his hard work. It was the morning of day 4. Michaela was busy with her usual morning prayer, a quiet ritual she followed faithfully. But today, something was different. She could hear wolves howling, and they were close. Uncomfortably close. Still, she didn't let it shake her focus. Let them howl all they want. She had more important things to do. As always, her first task after waking was to check the fishing net. Unfortunately, it was another disappointment. No fish. It felt like her survival skills she was once so proud of, were somehow being neutralized in this harsh place. With nothing to bring back, she began the walk to camp. But fate had other plans. On the trail, she stumbled upon a kidney likely left behind by wolves after hunting a rabbit. It was a strange, unexpected gift from nature. She gathered some wood, started a fire, and roasted it. The taste? Not exactly delicious, but in the wild, food is food. Cubby was in the middle of building his long-term shelter when hunger struck hard. His stomach growled louder than the wind through the trees, and satisfying that hunger became his top priority. He grabbed his bow and arrows and headed into the forest. The dense underbrush made movement difficult, especially for someone of Cubby's large build. He pushed his way through branches and thorns for over half an hour without spotting a single animal. Then suddenly, he froze. Right in front of him was a massive paw print, undeniably from a giant grizzly bear. The track was fresh, clear, and far too close for comfort. But his hunger pushed him onward. He couldn't turn back now. Then, out of nowhere, Cubby let out a loud scream and collapsed to the ground. What happened? No one could have predicted it. One of his arrows had slipped out of its quiver and pierced his own thigh, right in the femoral artery. It was a nightmare scenario. The longer the arrow stayed in, the worse it would get. Gritting his teeth, Cubby cut open his pant leg, pulled out the arrow with shaking hands, and slapped on a makeshift bandage. But the damage was done. As he limped back toward his camp, the pain intensified. Blood loss made him dizzy. The wound was deep, too deep for one man to handle alone in the wild. With no other option, Cubby reached for his satellite phone and called for help. It was a heartbreaking end to his journey. Cubby became the first contestant to leave the competition this season. In less than a week, one contestant has already been eliminated. So how will the remaining participants survive the harsh wilderness and ferocious predators? All of that will be revealed in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a single moment of this intense survival journey. Goodbye for now, and see you next time.